الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Tonight, inshallah, we continue with Kitab al-Tahawiyyah للإمام أبي جعفر الطحاوي. قال رحمه الله تعالى: قديم بلا ابتداء دائم بلا انتهاء لا يفنى ولا يبيد. He, rahimahullah, the author, is speaking of Allah Azza wa Jal, and is talking about the attributes of Allah. And he talks about the belief of Ahl al-Islam, Ahl al-Sunnah wal-Jama'ah, regarding the Lord and what we believe our God to be. Because many people have created their own gods in their own minds or with their own hands. So he and we need, as Muslims, need to learn the reality of Allah Azza wa Jal and what we believe of Him, because it's important to know who you worship, and it's important to understand what He is, what He was, what He will be. All these things are facts that if you want to connect with Allah Azza wa Jal, and you want to worship Him the way He deserves, then you need to know about. He spoke about some attributes or some things that Allah Azza wa Jal is, and he spoke about some attributes that Allah Azza wa Jal isn't. And then he proceeds and he continues to add more. So in this part, he says, قديم بلا ابتداء. Allah Azza wa Jal, قديم بلا ابتداء. قديم is opposite of hadith. The word قديم means old, opposite of new. والله عز وجل says والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم. And when it comes also al-qadim or al-qidam refers to precedence, to precede, يعني to be before. So for example, tonight I came to the salah and you have already started. So you preceded me in the salah. فالقديم, it means, one of the meanings, as we said, the old, because usually you proceed, or whatever precedes is older than whatever being preceded. فالله عز وجل is described as al-qadim, but it's not one of His names. Qadim isn't one of His names, so you cannot make dua to Him using the word al-qadim, even though Ahl al-Kalam and people who were so influenced by philosophy and all that, they use al-qadim. So when they want to describe Allah, they don't say Allah, they will say al-qadim. وهذا a lot of times has to do with arrogance. They don't want to confess or admit there is a God, so they use these terms, the old or nature or this or So very important. So we as Muslims, we don't describe, or we do not, al-qadim isn't one of His names. So you don't say Subhan al-qadim, okay? But we can describe Him subhanahu wa ta'ala with al-qidam. So here when he says Imam al-Tahawi قديم بلا ابتداء, يعني Allah Azza wa Jal was before anything, without a beginning. Okay? Allah Azza wa Jal is eternal, without a beginning. Without a beginning. يعني He wasn't there and suddenly He became. Okay? So He was there eternal. Most A lot of times people, when they say eternal, they think of future. But also eternal talk about the past. So Allah Azza wa Jal was there before anything, as well as was there, and He did not come out of nothing. Okay? He did not start, subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when we say al-Qadim, we refer to that. So Allah Azza wa Jal Qadimun, He was there before anyone, before anything, bila ibtida, without a beginning. Without a beginning. Da'imun, bila intiha. And He will subhanahu wa ta'ala be eternal, future-wise, without an end. So He's eternal in the past without a beginning, and He's eternal in the future without an end. كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام. So everything will vanish, everything would perish except Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay? So everything has a beginning, and everything could have an end, because there are things have a beginning but will not end. Allah Azza wa Jal will not end them. Something like paradise. Allah will not end paradise. Allah will not end hellfire. Okay? But is it possible for hellfire and paradise to be ended? Yes. Because Allah Azza wa Jal, as we will see, one of His attributes is Al-Qadir. He's the one supreme, omnipotent, to do anything He wants. He's all powerful to do whatever He wants. So the fact that we say hellfire will never end, impossible, until now you're questioning the ability of God. There is difference, we need to differentiate, and we'll come across that. Differentiate between some ideas, differentiate between willing and between wanting, okay, and between loving. All these terms are critical when we talk about the attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal, as we will see. إذن بلا ابتداء فهو الله عز وجل أزلي وأبدي. لما نقول قديم بلا ابتداء دائم بلا انتهاء, we're referring to two ideas. أزلي, الأزل has to do with the past. فالله عز وجل is there as far as we can go, because this is who Allah Azza wa Jal, eternal from the beginning. He has no beginning, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, to be able for us to come and try to understand that, possible. It's very difficult idea to imagine something without a beginning. But that is the key. Is something. The key is we cannot imagine or fathom that something is without a beginning. Something that is tangible, something we can see, something we can imagine. But Allah Azza wa Jal is beyond that. So just asking the question, because one of the questions that rises is who created Allah? This is something really, the question itself is wrong. The question itself is wrong. And the reason it's wrong is because we are thinking of Allah, which is something we already spoke of, that Imam Al-Tahawi spoke of, and he will repeat. The only way we can think of Allah, who created Allah, is if we put Allah in our own frames. If we put Allah and we make Allah at our level, then we will ask that question. But Allah Azza wa Jal is beyond us. Allah Azza wa Jal is higher than us. Allah is nothing like Him. He's not like us. You think of something that is created, how it was created. But Allah Azza wa Jal higher than anything you can you can imagine. So just to ask who created Allah itself is a mistake, is a wrong question. Very important, because the fact is Allah Azza wa Jal is nothing like Him. فالأزلي هو الماضي الذي لا حد له. فالله عز وجل eternal without a beginning. And He is also eternal, without an end. Without an end. So as I said, those are two names or two descriptions of Allah, but they are not names of His subhanahu wa ta'ala. يعني, in the Quran or the Sunnah, you don't find that Allah describes Himself as Al-Qadim, or one of His names. You don't find the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam describing Him as Al-Qadim, or Al-Daim. Al-Daim يعني the continuous. He will always exist. However, we have in the Sunnah two names that refer to that. Al-Awwal wal-Akhir. Al-Awwal wal-Akhir. The first, the last. يقول الله عز وجل هو الأول والآخر ظاهر والباطن. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam described that. يعني this hadith could be the تفسير of this ayah. فيقول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم اللهم أنت الأول فليس قبلك شيء وأنت الآخر فليس بعدك شيء. One of the dua and the supplications of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, Oh Allah, you are the first, nothing before you. You are the last, nothing after you. You are the first, nothing before you. And you are the last, nothing after you. Well, with this idea, and with this description of Allah Azza wa Jal, then you start realizing that almost every, and I will not say all, it is all at the end, but almost, because there's still some, they cannot even tell you what they worship. But almost every God that we are knowledgeable of, or God, as people describe or take as God, is created. Everything that people worship, everyone that people worship beside Allah is created. Yani existed after something. So something that existed after something, most probably it got to be independence of something. And then when you see a group of people who say, Jesus is God. If Jesus or Isa, can we describe Him as nothing before Him? He came through people. Mary or Maryam alayhi salam got pregnant of Him. So that means He was independent, or He was dependent. So how could God be dependent? Those who worship idols, they made them. How could you worship a God that you make? So if everything is made, or everything was preceded by something, and this is an issue that scholars spoke of, then you, or the one who really deserves to be worshipped, is the one who's different than all these things. The only one who's different than all these things is Allah Azza wa Jal, who was there and nothing is there. Okay? Allah Azza wa Jal, the awwal, the first, no one and nothing before Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. قال رحمه الله لا يفنى ولا يبيد. وهذا emphasizing the same point, that He does not end subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's eternal, and He's continuous forever without an end. لا يفنى ولا يبيد. والفناء كل من عليها فان. والإبادة, or the disappearance, also that mentioned in the Quran. قل الله عز وجل ما أظن أن تبيد هذه أبدا. Surah Al-Kahf, about the man who had the gardens, he said, I don't think this will vanish or perish ever. Same thing, Allah Azza wa Jal does not perish. These both words serve the same meaning. Allah does not perish, Allah does not end. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be. He was when no one, and He will be if no one. فالله عز وجل لا يفنى ولا يبيد. إنما الذي يفنى هم المخلوقات. What are the things that perish? The creations. Whatever gets created, it will perish, or it's prone to perish. And the reason for that, because at one point it was nothing. Anything that was nothing at one point is prone to become nothing again. That's where the idea of start understanding who Allah is. Again, anything that did not exist, if it's first started as no existence, was nothing, then what prevents it from turning into nothing again? Nothing. Now again, will it happen with everything? No. But the only reason it's not happening because Allah wills. But also if Allah wills, it will become nothing. Okay? So anything that starts with nothing is possible to turn into nothing. Possible. Most things do. All people do. All people will die. The earth will eat them, and they will decompose and become nothing again. Because they were nothing at one point. So there is no reason for them not to be able to go back to where they came from, by the will of Allah. So the one who started them from nothing can turn them back to nothing. But the one who was never nothing can never become nothing. Allah Azza wa Jal, this is a must, you have to believe in that. That Allah Azza wa Jal has no beginning. Because if you believe He has a beginning, you must, it's imperative to believe He has an end. That's what the mind says. Something, when we say something has started, that means it was preceded by non-existence. Anything that preceded by non-existence tends to, and prone to turn back to non-existence. That's like, we could call it. Allah Azza wa Jal can, and there is no beginning for Allah Azza wa Jal. قال المؤلف رحمه الله ولا يكون إلا ما يريد, and nothing takes place except that what He wills or what He wants. Let's use that. We need to differentiate now between wants and wills. Very critical. Okay? He says رحمه الله أبو جعفر الطحاوي ولا يكون إلا ما يريد. يعني nothing happens in this world, in this universe, but let's talk about our world. Some people ask about Allah and they cannot think even beyond their neighborhood. And now he wants to talk about Allah and he wants to question Allah and ask who Allah and where He came from. So let's talk about our environment, where we live. Let's talk about this planet here. But whatever I say, applicable to everything beside Allah, because everything created by Allah Azza wa Jal. وَلَا يَكُونُ إِلَّا مَا يُرِيدُ. Nothing happens except what Allah wants to happen. فَعَالٌ لِمَا يُرِيدُ. Okay? Nothing happens in this whole world without His permission. Nothing happens without His approval. Nothing happens beyond His will. Okay? That's the God we believe in. The God we believe in, that no one and nothing can take place if He doesn't allow. No one can make a step if He doesn't allow. The moons and the stars and the sky and the heavens and the water and everything, the air, take their or make their movements if they move by His permission. I'm moving my lips now by His permission. My heart is beating by His permission. Everything takes place in this universe in this creation of Allah Azza wa Jal is by His permission subhanahu wa ta'ala. هناك إرادة كونية إرادة شرعية. Okay? إرادة كونية and إرادة شرعية. الإرادة الكونية is that something Allah Azza wa Jal wants from people and it happens. Okay? There are things in this world Allah allows. Doesn't mean He loves it, but He allows it. This really answers a very complicated question for a lot of people. They see some child who's sick. They see children getting killed. They see poor. They see poor people. They see orphans. They see crippled people. They see this. They see earthquakes. And they question, how Allah let this happen? Right? When they ask this question. Or they come to the Muslims, we're oppressed and we're killed here and there. If we have the truth, why this is happening? Simple question. That question or the confusion arose from the mixing between irada and mahabba. They thought that the fact Allah allowed it to happen, that means He loves it. That's why we need to differentiate. فالإرادة الكونية is anything that happens in this universe. Okay? Allah wanted it to happen, allowed it to happen. But does Allah love it? No. Does Allah love someone to worship something else beside Him? No. Does Allah love people to get sick? No. Does Allah love people to sin? No. Does Allah love children to suffer? No. Allah Rahim. Allah is merciful. But did Allah allow it? Yes. Now we're not going to talk about the hikmah, the wisdom. That's something else. We'll come across that. But here we're talking about 2 points between wanting the thing and loving the thing. Okay? Of course they used to teach us in school, you cannot add ing to want and to love. But يعني, allow me. So there's a difference between Allah wanting something and Allah loving something. Okay? So anyway, whatever happens, take place, there's Allah want things that have to do with existence, and Allah wants things that have to do with what He loves. So there are things happen. There's no, He could love them, He could not. That's an order. And there are things happen that He loves them. That's an order. Make it simple. In this universe, there are people who are going to be guided, and there are people who are going to be misguided. Allah Azza wa Jal willed and wanted for some to go guided and some to go misguided. So we cannot say the ones who are guided because Allah wanted them to be guided, and the one who misguided because Allah has no control over them. La. Those got guided and those got misguided by the will of Allah. Now that is one thing. On the other hand, when Allah ordered people to be guided, definitely He wanted everyone to be guided. But some chose one way and some chose another way. You see the difference between the two? Okay? Again, I'll make it, or I repeat. Allah Azza wa Jal, let's explain the first one. Allah Azza wa Jal wants everyone, He ordered everyone to believe in Him. Right? Is that something He loves? Sure. That is called irada shar'iyya. Yani that's a command from Allah and He wants it to happen. He wants people to do it because He loves it. It's a command, wajib. On the other hand, those same people, some went this way and some went that way. This is irada kawniyya. In other words, not everyone gonna be guided. Allah decreed not everyone gonna be guided. He gonna order everyone to be guided. But He also knows, because He created them, not everyone gonna be guided. هذه إرادة كونية. Okay? إرادة كونية. Something that's gonna happen. يعني in other words, الإرادة الشرعية, the command, the wajib, the obligation, a lot of people will do it, a lot of people will disobey. الإرادة الكونية, everyone will do it. There's no option. It will happen. When it comes to the guidance, Allah wanted that people, or Allah willed that some will believe and some will disbelieve. When it came to shara, He didn't want them to disobey, but they chose to disobey. But their disobedience falls under, still under the realm of Allah's will. Yani the bottom line, nothing happens in this world and in this universe without the permission of Allah Azza wa Jalla. But we need to differentiate. The reason we need to differentiate is it becomes clear to understand the text. Becomes clear to understand the Quran. Because a lot of people mix up between those two types of worlds that he start questioning. So when he comes, for example, and Allah Azza wa Jalla says, فَمَنْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ أَنْ يَهْدِيَ يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ. Whomever Allah wants to guide, He will open his heart for Islam. So the question becomes, so there are people, Allah didn't want them to be guided. So if He didn't want them to be guided, right, how are we going to punish them? Right? It's a question. Yeah. If the guided one is guided by the permission of Allah and the misguided one is misguided by the permission of Allah, how could He punish one and reward the other? This is a very legit question. Very legit question. The answer is simple. Because we mixed one irada with one irada. Those same two people, Allah ordered them to be guided. He ordered them to believe. He ordered them to worship Him alone. ماشي? One chose to disobey, and one chose to submit. Clear? Clear? The first order is shar. That's the deen. That's why He sent the messengers, why He sent the books, why He sent the prophets. To tell people Allah wants you to worship Him alone. Some of those, as I said, believed, and some of those disbelieved. Now those who disbelieved, they disbelieved because they chose to. Because the same question, and I asked that person the same question. I asked him, well, when the Prophet came to A person and B person, why A followed and B disobeyed? Okay. B disobeyed because Allah Azza wa Jal allowed him. Even though Allah does not love him to disobey, but allowed him. But also, he made that choice. But his choice is not beyond the umbrella of the will of Allah. That's what it is. Okay? So, the issue. The point is, Allah Azza wa Jal will not force someone to disbelieve and then punish him. That's out of justice. Allah will not create a person and tell that person, you must disbelieve, and I will give you no chance to believe, and then punish him. Won't happen. Allah will create him and will give him what he needs to believe and what he needs to disbelieve. وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فألهمها فجورها وتقواها. So Allah creates everyone and He gives him the tools to believe and to disbelieve. Then this person chooses which tool he wants to use. But whatever tools he used is not something goes beyond what Allah allows. Did Allah, when He created, let's say Pharaoh, when Allah created Pharaoh, did He know that Pharaoh will die as a disbeliever? Sure. But was there a chance for Pharaoh to believe? Sure. What's the dalil? He sent him Musa. He sent Pharaoh Moses. So that is a proof that Pharaoh there is a chance or there is ability for Pharaoh to believe. But he chose not to believe. So when Allah punishes Pharaoh, He gave him the opportunity. But before Pharaoh died, did Allah know that Pharaoh will die kafir? Sure. But did that knowledge, did Pharaoh himself, he knew that Allah knows he will die kafir? No. So when you come to someone and tell them, for example, pray, you say, Wallahi, you know, I'm still young and Allah didn't write for me to be guided yet. Allah doesn't want me to be guided yet. So he wants to live his life the way he wants because Allah did not yet allow him to be guided. But the question is, until you know as much as Allah knows, how you know that Allah doesn't want you to be guided now or tomorrow? Did you look in Lawh al-Mahfuz or in the book and you saw that Allah says, I will be guided in January of 2020? ما تعرف. So to use that as an excuse, we use it against you as well. How you know? So very important to understand this. So الإرادة الكونية, الإرادة الشرعية. إرادة كونية will happen. Allah decreed that some people will be guided, some people will not be guided. This will happen. There's no way that everyone will believe. On the other hand, Allah ordered everyone to believe. Some people will and some people will not. So the first irada al-kawniyya, it must happen. The second irada, some will choose to happen, some will choose not to. Add to that, al-irada al-kawniyya, Allah loves it or doesn't love it? Not necessarily. So those who are misguided doesn't mean Allah loves them. And those who are guided, Allah loves them. On the other hand, Allah, when He says in the Shar' to do something, because He loves it. So which tells you, not everything that happens, Allah loves. And not everything that doesn't happen, Allah hates. Okay? So وَلَا يَكُونُ إِلَّا مَا يُرِيدُ. يقول الله عز وجل يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر. Allah wants to make things easy for you, He doesn't want to make it hard. Is this كوني or شرعي? كوني؟ شرعي. Allah wants, when Allah tells you, pray standing. If you can't, pray sitting. That's Allah wants to make it easy for you. Now, so that's shar. It's an order. Now, if someone is sick and decides to pray standing, or someone is sick and decides to fast, okay? Shar'an, we say the irada al-shar'iyya could happen, could not. So here this one did not allow it to, did not let it happen. Okay? But with the guidance and misguidance, definitely it's going to happen. So the irada al-kawniyya definitely happened. The irada al-shar'iyya, in this ayah, Allah wants al-yusr. If it was kawniyya, then al-yusr will be everywhere. But that's not happening. Some people choose to make it difficult on themselves. So here we see it's shar'i. Allah Azza wa Jal says تريدون عرض الدنيا والله يريد الآخرة. You want the fruits of the dunya, of this world, and Allah wants for you the akhirah. شرعي ولا كوني؟ شرعي. يعني Allah order you to do things so you can gain the akhirah. Now, some people will do, some people will not. But if it was kawni, that means everyone will win the akhirah. And that will not happen. Okay? وَاللَّهُ يُرِيدُ أَن يَتُوبَ عَلَيْكُمْ. And Allah wants to forgive you. كوني ولا شرعي? Why? Not everyone gonna repent. Okay? But if we look at the examples of al-kawni, Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَنْ يُرِيد. كوني ولا شرعي? Allah guides whomever He wants. كوني. كوني. Allah guides whomever He wants. Allah says, I want to guide you, and you go misguided? But whoever Allah guides will not go misguided. But those whom Allah guides, will Allah come to someone who never wants the truth, who always fighting the people of the truth? There is nothing good in his heart. Will this person be guided? He's not looking for guidance, period. Until you can be the biggest tyrant, but at one point in your life you look for the truth. If you are sincere, Allah will guide you. But someone tyrant his whole life, he knows the truth and doesn't even want. How he gonna be guided? Clear. So to summarize, الإرادة الكونية لا تستلزم محبة الله للشيء. الإرادة الكونية does not necessarily means Allah loves it. الإرادة الشرعية, الشرع what Allah wants from you in the Sharia, in the deen, in the laws, Allah loves. So there is nothing in our deen that we should do or we're required to do, but Allah loves. That's why when you do something, you're pleasing Allah. Could you please Allah with something He doesn't love? Possible. So al-ibadat and salah, siyam and dhikr and reading Quran and zakah and sadaqah and charity, all these things, if you do them with the right intention, will you get closer to Allah? Sure. Which means Allah loves you. So, or al-shar' or al-irada al-shar'iyya, Allah loves. Al-irada al-kawniyya, not necessarily. Allah decrees that if some people are going to get sick, or every person, or there is health and sickness, there is richness and poverty. That's irada kawniyya. Al-kawn is like that. The world is like this. They're rich and they're poor. They're healthy and they're sick. They're young and they're old. People die. Kawniyya. When it comes to shar', people pray and people don't pray. People obey and people sin and disobey because they did not fulfill the irada shari. Then the irada al-kawniyya must happen. Must happen. The irada al-shar'iyya, not necessary. Could happen, could not. It depends on the person. Allah says pray. Some people will pray, some people won't pray. Okay? So shari could happen, could not. Irada al-kawniyya, it must happen. Allah wants people to be guided and wants people not to be guided, some and some. It must happen. There is no way tomorrow we wake up and everyone decide and everyone in the world agree, we're gonna prove the Quran is wrong. So they all say, we are guided. All say la ilaha illallah. They will not do that. Okay? They will not do it. Because if Allah says there will be people guided and people misguided, it will be impossible for all to be guided. Impossible. There is a point where all were misguided, but not all guided. Allah Azza wa Jal says, كان الناس أمة واحدة فبعث الله النبيين مبشرين ومنذرين. He said all people were one nation. So Allah sent the prophets and the messengers to warn and to bring the news and to bring. طيب, if people all united, why He sends the prophets? Do you read that in the Quran? All people were one. And then Allah sent the prophets, and then they got divided. So it would have been better if there were no prophets. So how we carry that?
At some point, if you were on something that Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't love, you were on kufr. That's where Allah Azza wa Jal sent the Anbiya and Rusul to divide between haqq and batil.
At some point, the people was guided and then they started to be misguided.
Sure. So people were one on the kufr, on disbelief. Because the issue is not to be united on anything. That's not what matters. What matters to us, is to be, if we're going to be united, we need to be united on the truth. There's no point. There is no significance or there is no praise to be united on wrong. They come to a neighborhood, wallah, this neighborhood is so strong together. Well, every night they all get together, to get drunk. Seriously. Is that something I can praise this neighborhood or this community with? No. So what Allah wants is people to be united on the truth. Allah wants everyone to worship Him. إرادة شرعية ولا كونية؟ شرعية. الكونية, that some will worship and some will not. Okay? So when Allah says all people were united, they were united on disbelief. So He sends the messengers and He sends the books. So some will listen, some will fight, some will reject. They get divided. But this division is better than a million unity on misguidance.
They were all misguided all the time or like a certain time?
A certain time it came. Fish عندك Adam عليه السلام, and there was Tawheed, and then the fitan and the misguidance and killing his brother and all this, the children of Adam. But they reach a point where there was only kufr. So the prophets were needed to guide people. So now when we say divided, that's a good division. يعني, if you're a doctor, oh Allah, what are you talking about? Unity is good. I got a hospital. So let everyone feel equal and all feel together and one community, one hospital, away from their homes and their bedrooms. Let's put the newborn, the AIDS patient, the TB patient, the guy who has a cut, the little children, all in one room. So they all feel like together. Who says that? Who says that? So not always unity is good. If unity is on evil, isn't good. يعني the coalition. What is it called? That Bush created? The coalition of what? Of the willing or whatever. And you go and you recruit small countries here and here, Cyprus and Macau, and you say we got a coalition of forces. And you go and you start killing innocent people. Or United Nations. United Nations. What's United Nations? United Nations is nothing but a face for super evils to pass their agendas. Legally. Legally. That's it. Anything goes in the United Nations. You got few countries, that can say no. One country can say no. So where is the unity and where is the division of rights and the distribution of rights? I don't know. Alright. So, تقع الكونية must happen. الشرعية could happen, could not. It depends on the choice of the person. But whatever happens at the end, under the, does not happen without the permission of Allah. The person who obeys by the permission of Allah. The person who disobeys by the permission of Allah. The person who obeys, Allah loved him to obey. The person who disobeyed, Allah did not love him to disobey. But he disobeyed. Okay? Right. Those إرادة الكونية والشرعية, you find that some behaviors include both. Some behavior include one, not the other. And some behaviors include the other, not one. For example, when the believer believes, is this irada, did he fulfill irada kawniyya or irada shar'iyya? Both. Because when he believed, we said that al-irada al-kawniyya, that's going to happen everywhere, it's going to happen without a choice, that some people will believe. So when the believer believes, he falls under that. So by his belief, he fulfilled part of al-irada al-kawniyya. When he listened to the orders of Allah to obey, he fulfilled irada shar'i, the laws. So here he combines between both. Okay? When the disbeliever disbelieves, which irada? Kawniyya. When he disbelieves, he fulfilled that part, that must happen, that some people will be misguided. But he disobeyed the command. So he did not fulfill what Allah loves. Okay? The belief of the disbeliever, that did not happen. The belief of the disbeliever, that did not happen. You remember we said that Pharaoh, there was a chance for him to believe. So that is belief of a disbeliever, but did not happen.
It did not happen.
Didn't happen. So where it falls? شرعية كونية
It didn't happen.
طيب يلا let's vote. What is it? What you say?
I'll say neither.
Neither one?
It didn't happen.
شرعي.
لا شرعي, because he chose not to.
شرعي.
He chose not to believe that.
Because he chose not to believe. Okay? Because he was offered the chance and he chose not to. So he disobeyed. We said al-kawniyya must happen the way Allah wants it. Okay? Allah did not want Fir'aun or the disbeliever to die disbeliever. He gave him the chance to believe and he disobeyed. He ordered him to believe and he disobeyed. Okay?
Abu Talib.
Yeah. Okay. Also الإرادة الشرعية, الإرادة الكونية, we can describe it with المشيئة. المشيئة is the will of Allah. الإرادة الكونية, we can describe it by the will of Allah. يعني we say Allah willed. So when people guided and people misguided, Allah willed for those to be guided and willed for those to be misguided. We do not use the same term with Shari'iyya. And we don't say Allah willed for you to disobey. Okay? We do not describe it. Even though you disobeyed by the permission of Allah. Until you did not go into another universe or another world that God did not create and God does not have power over and disobeyed. Until you disobeyed in His kingdom. So your disobedience is not beyond His will. But we just do not use the term He willed. Okay? Because the expression willed implies that he loves. That he loves and he wants that to happen. إذا المشيئة, when we say المشيئة, only كونية. كوني, that Allah willed for. These, yes, يعني شوف the water to be made out of 2 hydrogen and 1 molecules and 1 oxygen, هذه كونية ولا شرعية؟ كونية. Okay? كوني. Allah willed for it to happen that way. We don't come to shar and say someone is sinner or someone doesn't pray because Allah willed. Why? Because this can become an excuse for him to argue. Well, the only reason I killed him because Allah willed. Right? Okay. Now when someone kills someone, did Allah have nothing to do with it? Yani, was Allah able to stop this person from killing that person? Sure. Did Allah allow it? Sure. Does Allah love it? Depends. You see, there is distinctions. Okay? Innocent, and someone innocent got killed. There's distinction between the terms. So we need to be careful with how we describe Allah Azza wa Jal. طيب, the way the irada, or the willingness, or the wanting can be kawni and shari. Other things in the deen also could be kawni and could be shari. For example, Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَمَا هُمْ بِضَارِّينَ بِهِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. About magicians, that they cannot harm anyone without the permission of Allah. Is this permission كوني أم شرعي? كون. يعني the magicians could harm and could not harm by the permission. If Allah allows them to harm, they will harm. If Allah allows them not to harm, they won't harm. Okay? So here, الإذن, this permission is called permission كوني. إذن كون. Could happen. It will happen. It will be that some will harm and some will not. Okay? Allah says, ما قطعتم من لينة أو تركتموها قائمة على أصولها فبإذن الله. They conquered Bani Nadir and they started cutting the trees to break their hearts. Allah says, there is nothing you cut but by the permission of Allah. كوني أم شرعي? لا. شرعي. Why? Allah ordered them to cut. Okay? They obeyed. فهذا صار أمر شرعي أو إذن شرعي. They fulfilled. أما الإذن الكوني, they have no power over. Some magicians can benefit, some can harm, and some magicians cannot. Who has control over that other than Allah? Okay? But when Allah ordered them cut the trees to break their hearts, the Sahaba could say, these are trees, we're not going to. Okay? So now that is shari. So they had that choice. يقول الله عز وجل وقضينا إلى بني إسرائيل في الكتاب لتفسدن في الأرض. هذا القضاء كوني أم شرعي؟ كوني. بني إسرائيل, Allah says, we decreed on Bani Israel that you will corrupt in the earth. Could Bani Israel come one day and say, you know what, we're not going to corrupt? ما عندهم استطاع. Allah decreed it already, so they have no choice. Alright? It's already decreed. So if all Bani Israel got together in a conference room and said, we are going to be so nice and so clean and not to do anything bad, no, they could have not been able to. And they did. And they did. But Allah says, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّهُ. Your Lord decreed that you only worship Him. كوني أم شرعي? Did everyone worship Allah? But Allah decreed that everyone worship Him. Decree meaning order. Huh? Allah wants everyone to worship Him, but many will not. Shari. Okay? يقول الله عز وجل وحرمنا عليه المراضع. About Musa alayhi salam, when his mother threw him in the river, huh? And then Pharaoh and his soldiers grabbed Musa, the little baby, huh? And they tried to breastfeed him. They kept bringing him one after another to breastfeed this baby, and he's refusing to take, to suckle. So Allah says, وَحَرَّمْنَا عَلَيْهِ الْمَرَاضِعِ. Is this tahrim? قدر كوني أم شرعي? كون. يعني if all the women in the world would have come to suckle him, will he suckle? He will not suckle. It's not a matter of choice, huh? They will have no power. So هنا التحريم تحريم كوني. تحريم كوني. يعني it must happen. When Allah made all breasts, when Allah made him not to accept any breast but his mother's, could anyone in this world change that? No. Even Pharaoh, who said, I'm God, couldn't change it. You see Iblis, they say in the story. Iblis, Satan, knocked on the door of Pharaoh. So Pharaoh said, who's that? So Iblis said, if you were God, you would have known. And very simple. Very simple. If you were God, you would have known. You didn't need to ask. Or like the woman whose cow died. So she came to Pharaoh's palace. Yeah, this poor cow, So she said she wants to meet God. Say, what you want God for? Yani Pharaoh. He said, my cow is dead and I want him to bring her back to life. No. Well, Pharaoh stuck. So they came back to her and she said, today is the day for donkeys, not for cows. Today Pharaoh is busy making life to donkeys, not to cows. But anyway. But Allah Azza wa Jal says, حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ الْمَيْتَ. Allah made haram for you to eat dead animals. A goat, dead, not slaughtered, you cannot eat. كوني أم شرعي? Are there people who gonna eat dead animals? Yeah. Sure. There are people who eat people's flesh. And not China, no, China. Don't be a racist, man. Not Chinese, not necessarily. And I read articles about actors and actresses who eat them. Where it comes from, Allah. Well, it's not hard to dig a dead body, But they do, khalas, human nature, if it's not in alignment with what Allah wants for it. This one, shari'i am kawni? Shari'i. If the heart is not in alignment with what Allah wants, we'll keep looking for what satisfies it, and we'll never be satisfied. Some will reach that point. Some will reach that point. And more. Like Pharaoh. Pharaoh reached that point. Pharaoh, everyone has that desire to claim to be the Hulk. The #1 guy in the world, right? I am God. But some people, someone like me, if I come and say I'm God, who's gonna believe me? So I keep it inside. خلاص Allah created us like that. We have inclination and desires to power. So everyone has, as Ibn al-Qayyim said, everyone had that desire to claim to be a God. Some don't have that potential. They have nothing to lean against. If you have billions and billions of dollars and you got power and all that, well, you might justify in your mind to say God, and most probably you're going to find people who follow you. But someone who's very poor and he says, I'm God, who gonna follow? Cats and dogs. So some could not show it, they kept it inside. That's most people. And some, they thought they got the power to do it, so they revealed it. Pharaoh did that. Namrud did that. They revealed it. And claiming to be God does not necessarily means you have to spit it out and say, I'm God. Every time you believe in yourself and you give yourself credit that only goes to Allah or to God, you're claiming to be God. So when you have a president who comes one day in a speech and he said, ما يبدل القول لدي وما أنا بظلام للعباد. Nothing. This is an ayah in the book of Allah. هو للعبيد قراءة للعباد قراءة بس هو قال للعباد. ماشي. ولعله أراد إنه يعني عشان so they don't say it's a Quran. But when Allah says ما يبدل القول لدي, Allah says in the Quran, whatever I say will go. And I do not oppress the slaves. I do not oppress anyone. So he gives commands and they want him to change the orders he gave this president. So he comes on national TV and he said, ما يبدل القول لدي. He uses the same ayah, the same verse in the Quran that's only applicable to God, and he used it by himself. Well, he didn't need to say, I'm God, literally. But by quoting this, something that only belongs to God, made himself God. Okay? So Imam Abu Ja'far al-Tahawi rahimahullah, when he said وَلَا يَكُونُ إِلَّا مَا يُرِيد, that nothing will happen except that which he wants. Why he brings this up? Why he wants to tell us? Now we know that. But why he wants to tell us Muslims, Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, that anything happens only because Allah wants, or by the will of Allah. Because they were deviant groups like Al-Mu'tazila, who differentiated, okay, between the willingness of Allah and the will of people. Okay, they differentiated. وهذا has to do with al-qadr, the decree, the destination, the destiny. Why they came up with this? They came up with this idea. They said, what we do as humans has nothing to do with the will of Allah. Yeah. When I disobey, Allah did not allow me to disobey. What they're trying to do? They want to say Allah does not allow evil, which is good. But they got mixed up between Allah allows it and Allah wants it. So for them to reject the whole idea, they said, what you do is outside the realm of the will of Allah. So they wanted to transcend Allah on one side, they put him down on the other side. Okay? Yani, in other words, you have the full power to do what you will, and Allah has no say in it. That's what they try to say. So what they try to transcend, they destroy. Which means Allah Azza wa Jal has no right to be worshipped. That's the bottom line. Because their agenda at the end to destroy the deen. If I, as a human who created, who's nothing in this universe, I can do things my Lord, the one who created me, has no power over, then what kind of Lord is that? شوف أنت والله المثل الأعلى. Just an example, maybe it will relate better. أنت you're the father in the house. And your child does something you don't like. Do you get upset or you don't get upset? Nah? Didn't you say, this is my house and you live by my rules? Right? My way or the highway? أنت human. You didn't create this child. You control nothing of this child life. But yet, because you are in a state above him, you feel upset that he's doing something you don't want. But yet you still believe you have the ability to stop him. That's why you start threatening him. So you want to come and tell me Allah has no power to stop me? What kind of God is that? That's what they say. So when I decide to go commit adultery or fornication or whatever bad thing, they want to say Allah will not allow someone to do something bad. So they said, you are independent of Allah. Man. Again, because they got mixed with Allah wills, Allah wants, Allah loves. So or someone, when he commits fornication, Allah wants it. Allah willed it, but Allah doesn't love it. Wants it إرادة إيه؟ لا شرعية. شرعية, because he told him not to do it, so he did it. Okay? Very important. But Allah doesn't love it. So the question when you start being hit with these questions, well, why this child got burned and died? Where is Allah? Why these children are dying from no food, starvation in Africa, and famine and sickness? Doesn't mean Allah loves it. Allah doesn't love it. But it happens by His permission. See, the Prophet ﷺ, we mentioned this in the khutbah, with this idea. Prophet ﷺ comes to the Sahaba, he said, مَا تَعُدُّونَ الرَّكُوبَ فِيكُمْ. He asked the Sahaba, what you consider al-Raqub amongst you? Al-Raqub for them, before Islam, when someone has a child and this child dies young, they call him al-Raqub. They call the parent al-Raqub. So the one who loses his child when the child is at young age, they call him al-Raqub. So the Prophet ﷺ asked him, who's al-Raqub amongst you? They say the one who loses his child, the one who did not keep a child. So the child is dead. So the Prophet ﷺ corrects them. He said, al-Raqub fikum, the one who did not give a child. For them al-Raqub, the one who gave a child. So he fixed that. He said, the Raqub is the one who didn't give a child. In other words, when you lose your child, when the child is at young age, that is negative. So he wanted to change their understanding. So he told him, the real negative is when you don't lose a child. Why? Because this child you did not lose. In other words, what you consider negative is actually positive. The fact you're considering losing a child negative at young age, actually it's positive. And the reason for that is because this small child could have grown up to become a tyrant, to disbelieve. So you will definitely lose him when he's thrown in hellfire. But the fact he's dying young, baby, this is a guarantee for you that if you continue to believe and you're being patient, you find him in paradise. So you might have lost him for 60, 70 years here, but definitely you will find him for eternity. So changing the perceptions, okay? changing the understandings. So that is here the same idea when it comes to al-Mashiach. We want to change how people see things. So when people think a child dying from poverty or starvation is negative, you don't know. It could be positive. There is a wisdom behind it that if you were able to see this wisdom, you will say, bring more children to die out of starvation. But because we don't see this wisdom, we assume it's all negative. But it's not. There is nothing in this world will happen, and it's absolute evil. Nothing. Even the devil himself, all things around him has nothing. It's not absolute evil. If Allah did not create Satan to whisper in the hearts of people and their minds and play in their how would you know where you stand with Allah? Who gonna be strong and who gonna be rejecting Satan and who gonna be accepting him? If you are not being tested in your life with hardships, how are you gonna know how strong you trust Allah? If everything is smooth for you, how are you gonna know you trust Allah? Because really you know where you stand with Allah is on how you deal with circumstances. Well, you can say all day long, I can sit here and say all day long, I believe in Allah, I trust God, I rely on Him, I believe He controls everything, I believe nothing happens but by His permission. And then I leave and someone just hit my car. And I look up and I say, why my car? How many people do that, right? Why me? Why it has to be, you're in a class, 40 people, and you're the only one who failed. Why it has to be me? Seriously. Your relative gets sick, cancer. Why it has, out of all these people, you chose my mother or my grandmother? Where is the reliance? Where is the trust and the belief that Allah do or does whatever He wants? So there is nothing that happens just negative 100%. But it could be negative the way you deal with it. You could make it completely negative. When you lose your child and you don't deal with it the way you're supposed to deal with it as a believer, you lost the child and you lost to act right. When Allah takes away something from you, something dear from you, if you are not being patient, you lost that thing. And you lost the reward of being patient. So where's the benefit? Okay, so you could turn it completely. How many people, something bad happens, had they reacted right, they would have become, as they say, on top of the world. But they acted wrong, they lost everything, here and there. In the dunya and the akhirah. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ عَلَى حَرْفٍ. Allah described a group of people who worship Allah on an edge. As long as things are okay in his life, he loves Allah. He loves Allah. And I'm so happy with Allah. His business working fine, his children are good children, his house is great, anything he wants he gets. Allah is good to me. The very moment something bad happens, قَلَبَ عَلَى وَجْهِهِ. Now he becomes, doesn't know Allah anymore. Why me? Why? Everything was going good. Why now? انقلب على وجهه خسر الدنيا والآخرة. So this guy lost the dunya because he did not react right when the bad thing happened, and he lost the akhirah because he will not get rewarded. This person never believed. This person never believed. How many people in life, they're so good to you, and you think, well, he's my best friend, right? Best friend. You make a little mistake with him, khalas. Then you realize, well, they were never my friends. But because they were good, and your criteria is that, the criteria with friendships should not be how much good he does to me or for me. If he brings me food, he's my best friend. If he doesn't bring me food, he doesn't like it. If he gives me gifts, my best friend. If he doesn't give me gifts, not a good friend. If this is your criteria, you will be very disappointed, because you will live alone. You will live alone. Friendship and brotherhood and all that, it's different criteria. And it's all based on one thing, the Iman, believing in Allah Azza wa Jalla. Okay? So, يعني to finish this point, المعتزلة نفوا المشيئة. فعندهم مشيئة الله ليست عامة. مشيئة الله ليست عامة. The will of Allah is not universal, it's not general. يعني مشيئة العباد, our will, as humans, as slaves, is separate than the will of Allah. So what we do, Allah has nothing to do with it. Cannot control it. Why they said that? Because when we do bad, they don't want to say Allah willed the bad. But they made a bigger mistake. Now to say Allah does not will the bad, but allows it, it's one thing. Allah willed it, but doesn't love it, it's fine. But to say Allah has no control over it, that's completely outrageous. How you can fix that? How you can fix that? And I convince you that Allah will allow the bad thing to happen, but this bad thing is not absolute evil. It could have something good to it. Wisdom that we don't see. And the fact Allah allowed it doesn't mean Allah loves it. And it makes sense. But for me to come and tell you, well, when you do something bad, you went beyond the power of Allah. So now I'm giving you power. But of course, who al-Mu'tazili not going to tell you, when you do bad thing, it's beyond the will of Allah. When you do good thing, it's within the realm of the will of Allah. Because he cannot divide. Because whoever divides, and we will see groups divided, got confused more. So he was going to come at everything. Anything you do as a human, Allah has no power over. So will I became God then? I'm a God too. If I can do something God has no control over it, well, I deserve to be God as well. Because what happens after that? You start knocking down every attribute of God. Every attribute of God. Here they're talking about the will. What you do, your will is separate than the will of Allah. Okay? Then it comes, your ability is separate than the ability. Your actions become separate than the will of Allah. Because when I act towards something haram or something forbidden, he cannot come and say, you walked under the power of Allah. He has to separate now your power from his power until he makes you completely independent of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Then what? Then everyone will claim to be God. That's what we don't want. So who is saying, you come and you go, you talk and you stay quiet, you sleep and you wake up, and Allah has nothing to do with any of that. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ هذا كفر كما تعلم. Because if you remember before, one of the things he said, al-Tahawi, وَلَا يُعْجِزُهُ شَيْءٍ. Nothing overwhelms him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yani nothing he is incapable of. Clearly. So when you say, your will is separate, then you negating this fact. You come and you want to teach your child something about God. You're going to say and tell him, God's will is separate than your will. He won't understand. But when you want to praise God in his mind and you tell him, God controls everything we do. Is that closer to natural thing? Or to say, God controls everything except what we do. Then how is it everything? Okay? قولوا قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.